The thrills of the road course, nestled in upstate New York, are typically behind lock and key through late April. But with iRacing, the full Send Sim Spec Miata series is full steam ahead for the fourth round of the season. Tonight's event takes place at Watkins, Glen International. And though the leaves have left the trees in this late January running, the blue bushes, as they call them, are in full bloom for a field of nearly 50 Miatas tonight. Hi, everybody. Kyle Heyer, joined tonight by Jake Sperry, filling in for Greg Creamer tonight. And Jake, though you're not sharing my side of the pond here tonight, thanks for sticking with me through a late night here over there. I'm really excited to be in this fourth round of the season at my home track. I grew up about an hour north of Watkins Glen International, and we're running the short course tonight. It is all high-speed action here, even in these Miatas.
Look, the one thing I love about Watkins Glen isn't necessarily the fact that the high-speed machinery makes its way around here through the series like IMSA. What I love are the shorter cars, the cars that don't have much power and have to be more reliant on the draft. These Spec Miatas here tonight are going to be all about the draft, and this is going to be the thinking in full flow. If you thought Daytona was tactical, trying to work out where the right place to be on the banking was, this is going to be a huge challenge. They have that important run to that braking zone, up through the S's of 2, 3, and 4, over through the right, the left of the bus stop, and through the long carousel right. But your opportunities for overtaking on this shorter style of circuit are pretty open. You've got chances at turn 6. You've got chances at the 90 turn number 1. There is always an opportunity around here, Kyle, to go and make an overtake happen.
Yeah, you can do it almost everywhere. There are places that are better than others, but the speed differential doesn't change all that much except for turn 1. But you get that draft up the S's into that inner loop, as you pointed out, that bus stop chicane, leap over those curbs. We're down the hill through turn 5 and into 6 and 7. It's all high speed. It's all high action. It is an enormous field here tonight. I think the pinch point, as it always is leaving turn 1, where the track is nearly 60 feet wide, down to where it's just 32 feet wide at the top of the hill in the S's, and 32 feet from wall to wall there, Jake. There is no room for error up there.
Absolutely not. This is a street circuit, effectively in a trench coat at this point, masquerading as a road course. It is one of those tracks where if you do get it wrong, you're in trouble straight away, and you do not have the room to get out of trouble. How many times do you see, Kyle, on an iRacing highlights of not what you wanted for the course of a week? Do you see S's at Watkins Glen? It's almost constantly found as a choke point and a bottleneck up those S's.
Yeah, and if that doesn't do it enough for you, how about this inner loop, the bus stop chicane? This is a narrow part of the racetrack as well. While the track might physically be a bit wider than the top of the hill in the S's, the racing line gets very narrow. The only saving grace is those big wide curbs, but oftentimes you're airborne over those as well. So controlling your velocity and the direction your car is traveling, especially when you're 3 wide down there, that's another critical section.
It's all about communication. I think today, as qualifying has 15 minutes to go and set a representative time, it's communication. Because this is an open style qualifying session in heat, you're communicating with every other driver around you. How do I get the best time out of my laps? It will translate beautifully into the racing that we've got, as Camden Hibbett has the fastest time at the moment on a 1:28.085 and looks a little bit nonplussed at the moment. This is pretty much all rudimentary at this moment in time for him. But what you get that sense of is, especially in this qualifying, who can I trust to draft behind? Who can I gain time on? How much time do I feel comfortable leaving? I'm going to get well out of the way, try and find myself further back in the pack to give myself a better opportunity to attack some future laps.
So watching Camden run wide there at turn 6, that brings up the discussion you have to have every time you come here to Watkins Glen. Track limits. Well, there are none in a couple key places, most notably the exit of the carousel leading into that penultimate turn. So way off in the distance there, no track limits there. But the exit of turn 1, there is a track limit. You run out too wide out there, you can get yourself a slowdown penalty, and that is not a place where you want to lift off the throttle. I timed it. It is over 30 seconds from when you get back on throttle at turn 1 to the braking zone at the inner loop. You do not want to lift for any reason, slowdown or otherwise.
Exactly, because the slowdown penalty may say at the top of your screen as you're going up there, oh, you've only got to give up half a second. Okay, that's fine. Give up half a second's worth of time. But it's not just the half a second's worth of time that you've given up. It's the half a second's worth of time plus the speed differentiation that you have, which means that you've then got to try and push all that time and try and gather it up. By the time you've given half a second back, you've effectively given 1.5 seconds out there on circuit, and that's where the rubber band snaps on the draft. So you're pretty much looking at do not stray too far out of the confines. And one of the big key differences, the 90's flat, it's definitely an advantage to go out that further. While it's still an advantage out of the carousel, it's a lot less of an advantage, but by the fact that it's so off camber on the runoff, so you're basically fighting the gravity against you to try and gain that little extra bit of time, and that's where iRacing say, you know what, that gain is minimal, you can go out as far as you like at that corner.
Rick Segrini is your points leader coming into the night, currently third on the timing and scoring with about 6 minutes left here. Joshua Soto runs second in the points. He's had off to a really good start here this season. He's got 46 points to Jordan Rick Segrini's 50. He runs at the moment 5th on track. Now, one of the drivers that we pointed out, 3-time previous champ, Morgan Burkhardt, he missed the last couple of weeks, had some issues as well early in the season. He should be back on form tonight at that number 40, and he is 8th place right now. He was just at Daytona running the Michelin Pilot Challenge in the touring car class and dodging and weaving through some messes there on the last corner. He's got some work to do to catch up in the points, and he is absolutely capable of sweeping the races. He's done it here before, and I think we'll expect to see this 40 up near the front.
Well, putting a time after missing some smashed Oreo pieces or whatever that Miata was, going second is certainly what Morgan Burkhardt is looking for. He's an outstandingly talented driver. He's someone who could definitely go out there. That was Greg Ginsburg, who found himself in all sorts of trouble from Club Virginia's. That's what you're going to see. There's going to be a huge, I would say, smorgasbord of different styles of driver and different talents out there. And you're going to see, just like that, going across the front stretch then out of the 90, that a lot of drivers are going to get caught up in places where they do not want to be. And the differences in speed in qualifying are going to be quite large. And that's where you're going to start sensing, okay, I've got to find either the right draft partner, as it looks like rush hour here on the interstate as you head over towards the section, or you're going to have to hope I've got enough pace to make it happen on my own, and I just need a little bit of room on what is a very large 3.94 kilometers, but very short in terms of lap time.
Dean Dibdall's had a great start to the season as well, runs 7th there in that blank white number 99. I wanted to point out Greg Ginsburg, announcer over for the SCCA, and he's been running with us here in the Full Send Sim Series for quite some time. It is his birthday today, so happy birthday to Greg Ginsburg. He will get a lot of thanks as he has to make some passes tonight from a long ways back. He's currently qualified 29th position. 44 cars have set times here, Jake. Nicholas Belmont, Carson Neal, and a handful of others have yet to put down times. We have 50 drivers in here tonight. That first lap is going to be critical. Only 20 minutes to race. If you don't qualify in that top 20, you're going to need some assistance from the racing gods to get you up to the front without incident.
And that's sometimes actually not the worst case scenario in the world as we focus on Nicholas Belmont at this moment, who's now 33rd fastest. If you haven't put a time down in qualifying, you start from the back, a lot of drivers will get into trouble early, and then you have the luxury from the back of the field of just picking and choosing your way through all of it and gaining quite a bit by being really conservative with the way you go out there and drive. Nobody chooses to start from the back. Okay, there are a couple of people who choose to start from the back, but nobody in an ideal world will choose to start from the back. They'll try and get up as far possible as they can. But this is a really important point. Quite often, especially in a race like this where it's so draft dependent, huge slide from the parallel racing group car. Burkhardt finds it in the barriers, really trying to push the limits out there. What you really do tend to find, Kyle, is that drivers, as we get a fantastic look at this, are looking at the split. Where is the rubber band going to snap? How many cars are going to get away down the road?
Morgan Burkhardt up to 2nd place despite that slide. He's had a successful tail end to qualifying. Olivier Piatek runs 3rd in that number 62. course, we pointed out Jordan Rick Segrini earlier, teammate to that number 40. He's got his team in hand now with Morgan back up at the front. Maybe something that Jordan could have used the last couple of weeks was a rear gunner for when he was out up front. And Jordan leads the points as a real-world competitor for BSI Racing, the Toyota GR Cup North America Series. We should see him back this year, but he has just had a tremendous opening start to the season as Joshua Soto, who runs second to him in points, just pips him, and Soto's now P4.
Yeah, that's a really good time there by Josh Soto. He goes only 0.2 of a second behind Camden Hibbett, and he's playing the lottery with the draft out here. And you talk about how strong is draft in a series like this. I would say it is the difference here today of about half a second on your lap, whether you've got it or whether you've not here, Kyle. And you talk about half a second. On most circuits, every driver wants that luxury, wants that dream of an extra half a second. I've often asked for an extra half a second and never got it, but you certainly think that an extra half a second here today, that's going to be a huge difference, especially when you look down at about Ayrton Grimm and Jack Murchison and those drivers that all within the same bracket, 129 flat. Half a second would give you a lot of luxury.
It certainly would, and the entire field covered by about 3.5 seconds here, and the vast majority of them within about 2.5 seconds. So it is a pretty tight field here for being as deep as it is. There's a good look at Murchison out of the Atlantic Club there, 17th at the moment. As we continue to circulate, last 50 seconds up on the board. It is a heat race style event, so in the checkered falls, qualifying is immediately over. So if you're not already on your fast lap, you're not going to get a chance to finish it. Nicholas Rice-Sputo jumps up to 10th. Bit of a late effort there for the 0-3. He's been right at the pointy end so far this season, and 10th is not the effort I thought we would see, but Jake, would you say this racetrack, maybe more than some others on the calendar when we go to some tighter, twistier tracks, is going to rely a bit more on almost like a NASCAR plate racing style of racing, more than it is about the precision of your lap, and qualifying might not mean everything here as we get into our races tonight?
Yes and no. I wish I had more than 10 seconds to sort of answer this sort of question because I could go on for minutes about it. Yes, I think it's going to be very similar. You're going to have to ride the draft and to an extent the bump draft as well. No, I think it's going to be different because you don't have that luxury of going full throttle all the time. It does take that ability to know when to push and when to not here, as practice does in fact make podium.
And racing is coming up here in a very short amount of time. We'll get down to the grid here in just a moment's time. But let's thank the partners and people that make it all happen. FSS, Full Send Sims, practice makes podium. Owner Court Schmidt, he has an extensive background in military simulation and participates in real-world road racing. Full Send Sims builds custom turnkey racing simulators with both real-world racing and simulation training in mind, and offer trackside sim rentals and driver instructional training, as well as corporate and private event rentals in the Central Florida area. Of course, 3P Logistics as well. Owner Frank Rodriguez as logistical support for you, your family, and your race car. They take care of booking flights, rental cars, hotels, and group gatherings while you're away from home. Tailored trackside support, race car storage, maintenance, repair, and transportation. And, of course, Final Turn Motorsports with a full-service prep shop and trackside support. Dyno Tuning, they build Miata transmissions and are a front-running chassis builder, partnered with the best engine builders in the Spec Miata category, and do driver development from licensing to pro-level racing. And, of course, a new partner as of last season is Wine Country Motorsports, your one-stop shop for sim racing gear and Full Send Sims turnkey and custom simulators. They got the largest combined inventory of premium race gear brands in the country and the best customer support in the business. Thanks to all those for helping us move this along. Having a quick look at the weather here, Jake. It is a bit toasty on the racetrack, 108 Fahrenheit, 84 degrees. It's hot out there, but it could be worse. I think the focus won't be so much on the surface of the racetrack, but looking up the road to see all those cars just ahead of it.
Well, the temperature's going to play a huge factor because you've got one very, very long corner where that's going to be the biggest point of contention. That's going to be that long carousel that those drivers will go through over and over again for 20 minutes of racing. Every time you hit this corner here, you are going to be hoping that your tires are screaming for a little bit of respite. And yes, you have these long straights, but it only exacerbates it more every time you go around. one. Now, they do have to line up behind the iRacing sedan first safety car, get themselves ready for racing. But one thing is going to be very clear. I think drivers are going to be very, very choice in choosing not to warm their tyres up today as Hibbett and Burkhardt hold the front row.
Yeah, row number 2, it's going to be Olivier Piatek in the 62. It'll be Joshua Soto in the 4th position on the outside of that second row. Jordan Rick-Segrini and Cam Evans sharing row number 3. Caleb Patry, Beans Forster in row number 4. And row 5, Jake, Dean Dibdahl, and Nicholas Rice-Budo.
Over then to row 6, where Eric Huot says hello, and Colin Weiss finds himself in 12th position. Then you've got Jean Reyes and Trace Hans, 13th and 14th. Nicholas Belmont will have Deacon Greenfield for company on that 8th row, as Ayrton Grimm and Jack Murchison make up 17th and 18th. The top 20 is rounded out by Michael Melvin and Skip Brock Jr.
Yeah, so we're going to let the rest of the starting order drop to the bottom of the screen. Richard Sawicki joins us. He's a past Grid Life competitor and SCCA competitor. He'll start in 22nd. Jorge Ortiz will start back in 24th. Jordan Butler will get a bit of a late start back in P25. This field is about as deep as I think we've ever seen it. It might be a record for the full Sim Spec Miata series. Can't confirm that now. Birthday boy Greg Ginsburg starts 31st. Court Schmidt back there as well in 33rd. It is a busy field, Jake, but it's all going to come down to that first lap. Can you survive to fight for the next 13 or so?
Well, the key here is that if many drivers get into trouble, a busy track becomes a spread out track, and that means lap traffic could be a huge factor here today. That's what these drivers are going to be looking around at everyone thinking, okay, this is what I've got to deal with. But at the front, it is very clear. Build a gap, or if you can't build a gap, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. It's about thought, and Morgan Burkhardt is deciding, you know what? I'm thinking I want to play the crazy race here today. He's getting himself psyched up, and I think we're getting ourselves psyched up as well, because these first 20 minutes are going to be a huge trendsetter for tonight's action.
And then we race our second 20-minute race with the starting lineup being sorted by the finishing order of race number 1. So a lot of this comes down to this race right here, right now. Full Send Sim Spec Miata Racing from Watkins, Glen. We're green in upstate New York. We're already 4 wide on the run down to turn 1. Jake, this is just going to be a mess if they don't get this sorted out. 5 wide on the run down to T1.
Oh, this is going to be trouble. Straight down in, and somehow they're all going to avoid it at the front. There's a huge slew of cars spinning now over in the middle, but the big worry was always going to be Christian Rice-Puto, who got a tap on the run on the launch, and then very nearly found himself up in second. Everybody trying to avoid. It's Burkhardt who's got himself clear. It's Olivier Piatek who's there. Rick Segrini finds himself third. Then you got Eben, you got Rice-Puto, you got Camden Hibbett, and everybody works the serpentine.
Morgan Burkhardt running like he stole it right now at the front of the field. Piatek second, Rick Segrini into third, still side by side with Rice-Puto there in that 19, shuffles ahead of Camden Hibbett into the inner loop for the first time. Otherwise, I think other than that mess at turn 1, we've made a way okay through the S's and beyond.
Yeah, and there is definitely that sense that drivers know that they are going to have to settle down and settle down quick, because you will lose time so effortlessly if you are not paying attention. Camden Hibbett there in 6th position will be certainly looking at this going, okay, that's not too bad, but we have lost 5 places off of the start, which is not what the doctor ordered in terms of that time, and he will have to gather that all back up again using the draft. Now, what's very noticeable is that this older spec of Miata, compared to the brand new spec that's out there on the iRacing service car, is not as aggressive in that slipstream. You can gain about a second on the straight in the brand new Miatas, but here in these classic Miatas, it's a little bit more choice. You're going to have to be a little bit more precise.
Yeah, they definitely don't suck up as well as the newer ND generation Miatas do. Look at Rice-Puto here in the 0-3, diving up the inside of Reyes through turn number 2. That was a gutsy call. Typically, the run up the hill is nose to tail, not side by side, but especially with cars that are this tiny, you can get away with it, but not much more than that. Single file now as Piatek keeps Morgan Burkhardt in sight here. A couple cars pulling off. Cam Eben in the 155 pulls to the right to try to break that draft.
Yet Cam Evan is probably one of the most experienced iRacers out there. If there's anybody that you want out there in a Miata, he is one of the best in the world, and it goes to the likes of Ade Kober, it goes to the likes of Jaume Dalmases. He is on that level, and down the inside, Camden Hibbett is going to be in play at the moment. Christian Rice-Puto on the outside, trying to desperately hold that position, but look at what the scrapping is doing. Caleb Patry deciding to give a huge push. He was so good in the SCCA runoffs on the tail end of last year, and he takes a tap for his troubles on the outside. That's going to open up Beans Forster, try and find every opportunity, and there's going to be a little bit of sliding that goes through. Pedal Cam in view as well, and everybody just about finds a way through, but look at the time lost by the taps.
Yeah, and the 19 is down pit lane. No, he's not. He's still on the racetrack, but he will be penalized for a false start. Don't know what the violation will end up being. Trouble as Trace Hance goes for a loop at turn 1, and he's into the tire bundles.
That is so much of a shame. So easy to have that small hit into the barriers. You do not want to be the one who finds himself in the wrong place at the wrong time, and ultimately it pays, and bang, there's the hit into the barriers. We'll take another look on the brakes into the 90, downhill, slowest section, and look at that. That's just a case of one car trying to square up the exit of the corner, get drive off the exit, but when everybody is so close together and you're playing effectively a game of sardines at this point, Kyle, you have to be so switched on if you're trying to make that move, because it's one wrong tap and it's done. And take a look at Olivier Piatek, who has just been so comfortable sitting on the back of Morgan Burkhardt. He is dangling him out there because he knows how important it is not to deal with the parallel sandwich, as Jordan Rixagrini finds himself in that third, waiting for that chance to move up to make it a parallel uno dos.
Yeah, this is really interesting stuff with Burkhardt and Rixagrini kind of bookending Piatek here, and Cam Evan just trying to keep these three in tow. Just like we saw at Daytona, it's possible for drivers to kind of gear up, work together, and drive away from everybody else while they scrap behind. So Cam and Cammed in right behind him have to make sure that they don't battle amongst themselves too much and lose sight of the big shiny goal at the end there is to win this race. Look at this battle into turn 1. Michael Melvin in the 36 and Joshua Soto moving forward again after getting turned around in that opening crash.
Yep, Soto is really having to try and make that ground back up again, and this has been a very good recovery back through. And well, can you blame him? He's in the classic 787B style colours. He's hoping that he's got a rotary engine that produces over 800 brake horsepower. He doesn't have that, but look at the damage on the front. That's going to compromise him in a straight line, and that's why he's so reliant on this group of Skip Brock Jr., of Jack Murchison, and of course Christian Rice-Puto. They're the second of the Rice-Putos in front. So at this moment, you're starting to see, as you can see, Skip Brock, he's really got to face a concentration, and that's going to be the turnaround that he was not hoping to have. That's how quickly you can see this race turn around, and you are looking at trying to stay with the group. Look at that, he's gone full crap mode.
Oh, that's heartbreaking for Skip Brock Jr. Was having a decent run, but it all goes haywire in the inner loop. We saw the contact start there. Let's go back a little bit further. It was with the 19 again. I'm told the penalty for the 19 will be a post-race penalty for that false start. Just comes off the curbing there, tags the 32. They get tangled together and then into the blue bushes, and they are not as soft as they might seem at first glance.
No, they're definitely not, and that's just a case of being pinched. You get yourself in a position where you've got to try and run too wide. Ideally, it's one-line suits all up through the S's and in towards that next section of road there, that outer loop, that bus stop, and that's the key. If you're going to go side by side, you need to leave some room. Bouncing off that curb, it's only natural the car's going to understeer out wide, and that's where the hit is. Forster up the hill now is going to try and focus on the group in front with the likes of Rice-Puto, the likes of who he's got around him, Jean Reyes. This is where this group now has to work, because they are already 1.6 off the back when they last crossed the line, and they know 1.5 is the braking distance. So this group's got to work together if it wants chance to gain any hope of a top 5 finish.
Yeah, that was a nice pass there by Forster into the inner loop. We saw the footwork there, the classic heel toe that this car requires. Greg and I always enjoy watching the old classic 3-pedal footwork there through the inner loop. Out wide at the exit of the carousel, fair play there. Beans Forster still climbing forward after starting in 8th. And of course, we mentioned Josh Soto. He's back up to 9th place now with those cars ahead of him that tangled just about a lap ago. The front 5 still on top of each other. It's now a 5-horse race for first place, and we're not even halfway in this first race yet.
I'll tell you what, there are some incredible drives in this field. Carson Neal is up 27 places, or he was, until he's gone flying in the gravel, which means now James Newell is up 27 places in this race. It is scary how much place gaining there has been in this race, and it's also scary how tame it is at the front. Nobody's been willing to go out there and make an overtake because they know you leave yourself out on the front, Camden Hibbett is going to sit right on the back of Cam Evans as they'll form the camshaft at the back of this group. This is going to be a case where they're all going to wait for the last 5 minutes, and basically it's, we'll all be nice, we'll all have pleasantries at this moment, but the moment 5 minutes comes along, that's it. We're going to take off our uniform and say, right, we're going to have a fight.
Every time we go to a big racetrack, we have this kind of battling. It becomes a chess match at 100+ miles an hour. And even more so when you're Olivier Piatek and you're between 2 teammates, because you're kind of at an advantageous position. You can drive defensively and offensively on the same team, but what you don't want to do is let them get hooked up nose to tail. Then they can make all the decisions up at the front. We've seen that play out so many times at places like Sebring, where the 2 teammates get hooked up, and it's very, very difficult to get one car by both of them at once.
Absolutely, you're up against the machine at that point, and that's the last thing that's wanted. Slightly wider line by Olivier Piatek. He's trying to really work through the final corner to try and get that run as close as you want. Wing mirror over the top of the safer barrier on that outside track, and every time you're sat in play, this is almost impossible right now for Olivier Piatek, because he knows that if Jordan Rixagrini decides he wants to start going for a move, then he has to go for a move then on Morgan Burkhart. What will that mean? He'll go into the race lead, and then on the last lap, he's a sitting duck. I would not want to be second position right now in this sort of race.
While these 5 continue to battle, there's another group a little ways back, led by Josh Soto in that 77. There's a lap down car just, and actually that's Jack Murchison. I can't believe that car's on the lead lap with the front end smashed in like that, but 9th down through about 16th, all in tow, about a second and a half behind.
Listen, it's not a case of needing a car to look pretty. It can be as bowling shoe ugly as it needs to be. That is doing the job right now as Jack Murchison, and he is very aware of that group behind and how much work he's got to do. It's an 8-car train that he pretty much sits on at this moment, and I'd rather be nearer the front than nearer the back, because if you've got to get by 7, you're going to need a little bit of time to do it with 9 minutes, 50 seconds remaining on the clock. I'd even say if you're on the back of that train, if you're Andrew Wozencroft at this moment in time, this is your warning bell. Get the hurry up message going. You need to start moving.
Yeah, he's up to 16th after starting 29th, so he's moved a ways, but hitting a roadblock here with Matt Friedman, Tristan Cadet, Ayrton Grimm, and a few others up the road. I don't know that there's much point sitting at the back of this pack. This is not the one that pays out the biggest points. You need to move forward, and Wozencroft has to keep that momentum rolling as they cross the stripe here. 9 minutes and 22 seconds to go. Those front, as you had said earlier, they'll exchange pleasantries for a few more minutes, but back here, the race is still very much on.
And the key here is that someone at the back of that group, like Wozencroft, who's not going to necessarily make that move, is banking on this group absolutely imploding on itself, and that's the key. It's always going to be a case of waiting for nuclear fission to effectively bring itself into play. Up the hill through turn 4, the last part of the S's, and this is where the power starts to come in. Evans just moved up into 3rd position in that lead group. It's got it done at the chicane, but this second group, 3rd group even I should say, is just being calm. They don't want to throw this race away. They know how important it is, and this is where it gets important. He got a little help on the shove from behind, and he just picks the pocket of Rick Sagrini.
Yeah, slots in between. That's going to make the PRG's team a little bit more challenging, in their assault forward here late in the going, because they've got now 2 cars between Rick Sagrini and Burkhart. Pretty hard to work together when there's 2 cars that aren't willing to be a part of your party. in between you and the other. Here's Hibbett still trailing very tight behind, and then just behind, that's actually Skip Rock Jr. who's a lap down, but it's 3.6 back to Beans Forster, who's now leading. Jean Ray is in the number 29.
Yeah, and that gap is just opening and opening and opening. You look at Morgan Burkhart's last lap, did a 129.5. Beans Forster, by comparison, a 130.0. It's half a second a lap, being unable to stay with this leading group, who are just pushing the margins a little bit more finer through these corners, and they can't keep pace. But now Cam Eben finds himself in a very awkward situation. He has made that move to get to third, but he goes all the way to the right-hand side. He doesn't want any position to be gained here on that line. Hibbett has to wait, and a huge moment for Rick Sagrini. He's going to have to go skipping across as Jordan Rick Sagrini, the chicane. That is just a case of wrong place, wrong time. Too aggressive down there at the turn. He went to turn in and realized, hang on a minute, I can't make it.
There might have been a touch there between those two on the run into the inner loop. Watch right here as the 155 is kind of braking here. Watch just the slightest bit of a touch there that sends the 108 straight. But either way, they were not going to go in there side by side without some catastrophe, and thankfully they minimized that. But Jordan Rick Sagrini loses some time, and he's 1.1 seconds behind Camden Hibbett. That's out of the draft here, Jake. He's got to work to get that back.
Yeah, but Camden Hibbett himself is 1.1 out of the draft from Cam Evans. So you turn that around, it swings and roundabouts. They're both having to push, and they're relying on this group that leads this race now to start fighting amongst themselves with 6:21 on the clock. So you start sensing now that someone like Camden Hibbett is going to need a couple of big laps. Jordan Rick Sagrini is going to need every lap to be a big lap at this moment in time. Cam Eben is so good at timing his run. He is someone who runs on military time at making overtakes.
We haven't seen him here in this league in quite some time. Most of the rest of the drivers in the top 10 or so are here on a weekly basis. So that means Cam's a wild card here. I don't think everyone in front knows exactly what his plans are. I'm sure many have raced him in iRacing's official series, and they have the slightest idea, but Cam is so good at these lightweight Miatas, whether it's the ND or the NC generation car. And you have to keep in mind that he's got some tricks you might not have seen yet.
He has every trick in the book. Some would say he has a first edition copy. He is so brilliant, but Olivier Piatek has been holding his cards very close to the chest, and he's been doing a stellar job at keeping Morgan Burkhardt honest. Burkhardt, an incredible driver with incredible standards, especially in this machinery, and he's gone out there against some of the very best in the world and has proven that he has the ability to win week or month in and month out. Group behind now starts to get a little bit interesting right now. This is Tristan Cadet, who's finding himself up 13 places at the moment in this race. He's got Ayrton Grimm just in front. Michael Melvin's there in the mix too. Friedman is there, so too Wozencroft. They're all there, they're all waiting, but now it's about, okay, I think it's either time to push or time to go. Wozencroft makes the look to the 90.
That's a big dive for the 80. Can he get it slowed down? He's going to run wide on exit here and way off into the runoff area. Cadet goes back on by and will chase down Grimm once again, side by side between Sawicki and Friedman in the trailing mirrors here of the 80. That was just a bit too much commitment, and overdrove turn one there.
It's so easy to overdrive it. You are on the finest of margins trying to find an area of attack, and it's so easy just to say, oh, I'll go 2 meters further along in my brakes. I'm sure it won't be a problem. It often is, and you so easily find out where the limit is. This is Richard Sawicki II, who finds himself then on defense at that point. He gets himself through though, so it was an attack on Matt Friedman, so he gets the move, but it's not necessarily the end of the world right now, because there's 4 very beautiful targets that are just in front, and it's all about, can you find a way past one more? You might almost unlock a way past Wozencroft here. He's sniping half of the draft along this back stretch heading towards turn 6, sneaks the inside through the 90-degree left. Thank you very much, it's his.
And he's through, but Wozencroft keeps a bit of overlap, has to give it up before turn 7, and he will do so. So that battle fizzles for a moment. Wow, look at Tristan Cadet up the road. Ayrton Grimm did not get off at turn 7 very well. That should let the 144 on by, and Sawicki is going to go by as well, the 528.
Yep, so he's going to find that move now, and he's going to be thinking about, well, okay, I've got this done, and every time they start scrapping about, look at Michael Melvin. He's slowly building that gap away, and you can't afford to scrap too much when it's such a tactical and draft-dependent circuit, because the moment you let someone go, it's a case of you're never going to see them again. They're going to run free for the hills. Top three still continuing, still keeping Camden Hibbett at bay. That gap agonizing at about a second, but Hibbett for the first time has really managed to close that gap down a little bit more. It might be too little too late for him in terms of trying to find an overtake, but he will latch onto the back of this group.
He just took a 10th out of Morgan Burkhardt's lead last time by, but it's not so much how he's doing relative to the 40 for the time being. He needs to be quicker than the 155, and that he was not. So they're coming to what should be 2 laps to go here. A bit of lap traffic to contend as well, but I don't think it'll get thick enough to really mix things up as that car is going to pull to the inside. We do have a mandatory blue flag rule here, so that will mean that that car will have to give up some time. Burkhardt takes 2 laps to go here, 2 minutes left on the clock as well.
Desperation there from Morgan Burkhardt. He was trying to get every little bit of draft he could out of the lap traffic. He's wanting to try and build a margin. He knows that he has been left out. He is stuck on the back, and he does have that beautiful rear bumper that says it's $5 per bump as he looks to try and go through. It might even be 5 cents. I can't quite see it from here, but you can see, oh, it's a full $5. He's charging a heavy price, and Olivier Piatek's known that, and he's been doing that all race long. So I tell you what, there's a small pocket fortune there for Morgan Burkhardt, and it waits for him with 1.5 now laps to go.
Into the inner loop here. This is where you have to just carry as much speed as possible. If you weren't already, send it through here. Top of 4th gear, bouncing over the curbs. All the top 4 get that a little bit right. Hibbett up to Eben now. He's right on his tailpipes, but they've left a couple car lengths up to Piatek, so it might just be a 1v1, but as soon as they get alongside each other, Jake, it's game on for everybody.
It is, and that's where you have to try and time the move as late as you possibly can without allowing anybody else into the mix. And it might be that you start right now on the brakes into 6th. Piatek's deciding he wants it on the last lap, blocks the pass as he goes through. This brings Cam Eben into play, sneaks up the inside into 2nd. Oh, he's a maestro, but look at the crossover coming along from Morgan Burkhardt. He'll take the push from Camden Hibbett as Barney waves the white flag. This is suddenly sizing itself up.
That was out of nowhere. How did Eben get through there? But he got crossed back over. Here comes Camden Hibbett down the inside for 3rd. They're banging doors there for the last step on the podium as Piatek leads through turn 2. Here comes Burkhardt back to the inside.
Just like that, up through the S's. Oh, there's a little bit of argy-bargy there, and Piatek's going to lose out then through the long left-hander, but he'll gather it back because he's got the inside. Now he's on the wrong side of the road, and he needs a push, and now it's all about pick your lane and pick your moment. Piatek might be hung out to drive here. Camden Hibbett is certainly having himself a fantastic drive as he now looks to try and find a way past Morgan Burkhardt. He's trying to sneak through on the inside. Morgan just shuts the door, takes an uber-tight line through the corner. He'll have to give it up somewhere. Eben has a huge slide as he goes through, and now they hit the carousel.
Not done yet. Half the lap left to go. Hibbett's on the rear bumper of Burkhardt. Gives it 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot. And as they leave the carousel, 2 corners to go, it's a draft battle down to the penultimate corner.
Look out on the right-hand side because Piatek's still not giving this one up either, and it's going to have to be the Hail Mary, very similar to one eNASCAR race where Michael Conti threw that in. Hibbett can't do anything. Piatek gets bought because of it. Now you need a worldie, but I don't think it's coming along. Burkhardt's got it secured.
Checkered flag waving. Can Hibbett get a big run out of the final corner? He cannot. Checkered flag. He wasn't able to get one at Daytona, but at upstate New York, he'll grab one here this week. Morgan Burkhardt wins at Watkins Glen.
That is a beautiful display of racing from the front. The one way you win by racing from the front is you hope that everyone else behind finds themselves in a scraps. When everyone was trying to push forward, gain as much as they can, this was just very simply here today in race 1, a game of I can't find a way through. Brilliant defense, and that's what makes Watkins Glen such a beautiful, I would say, battle tactica.
What an amazing finish there. And before we get rudely interrupted and pushed along to the next session, because of how quickly things move here, I wanted to go back and look at the finish between Soto and Butler. This was 8/1000ths of a second across the stripe there for the checkered for 9th place. Goes to Butler in the 72.
Yeah, that's a very good drive there by Jordan Butler, number 72, doing everything that was needed there just to hold on to that place. A gain of 16 today. Morgan Burkhart, absolutely fantastic to start, but all of those drivers in the top 5 earned that gap.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was a fantastic battle, and we're only half done. We still have another race to go, and all those drivers, including Cam Eben, are going to want another go at it here. Jordan Rixagrini grabs the top 5 as well, as my results will reset, and we'll move along to focusing on race number 2 of the night. We learned a lot there, Jake, and that chess battle got pretty fierce on those last 2 laps, but was it too early for Piatek to make that run into turn 6? Is that what doomed him here?
No, I don't think it was a wrong move, so to say. I think that the issue that he ran into was the fact that everyone was going to try and take a little bit, and I think he just gave too much away. Look at this. If you're going to push 2 tires on the grass, that's how ruthless Morgan Burkhart was. He shut the door absolutely ironclad shut. There was no way Camden Hibbett was going to find himself a way through. And if you were going to try and find that position and gain that place, you are going to have to go to the ultimate extremes to pass Morgan Burkhart with the way that he was trying to defend. You could see the rear was absolutely caved in on the back. They'll get a kettle full of hot water and a plunger, and that'll be pulled back out to perfect. But you get the sense that at this level, these drivers, you're going to have to find the perfect pass to get through. Yeah. Those opportunities happen once in a millennia.
It was so much fun to watch, and it was pretty wild out there. But I think all the drivers in the top 5 have learned a thing or two about how this race is going to transcend. We raced this combination last season and the season before, but it has never been that scrappy at the front to the end. We've had some close results there, but anyone in the top 5 could have had that. And Cam Eben played that to perfection the previous lap, but just got crossed over, so maybe there's some learnings for him as well. 11,000 iRating, I think there's always something for the teacher to learn.
Look, 11,000 iRating says all that you need to know. There are only, I would say, 2 drivers in history of the world who have hit 11,000 iRating, especially when it's come to the road. The other one you look at is the legendary Maximilian Benecke as the only other driver. So he is in some elite company. He is Mr. Open Wheel when it comes to the Miatas, and he proves time and again that he has a pace that very few can match when it comes to this car.
Well, race 1 is complete here for the Full Send Sim Spec Miata series here at Watkins Glen International. Race 2 coming up in just a moment's time. Big thanks again to Full Send Sims for putting on the series. They also, of course, are giving away prizes at the end of the season. If you've won prizes in the past, you're not eligible for them again the next season. So we're down to basically paying out 6th and down because we've had a couple repeat drivers up in the top 5 in points. One of the prizes is a Samsung 49-inch monitor. I've got one of those myself. Highly recommend that you get in the series and fight for that. There's some other great prizes on display as well, all thanks to Full Send Sims, Final Turn Motorsports, 3P Logistics, and Wine Country Motorsports. Big thanks for their support as always here, Jake. All right, race 2, when we start, we're going to be lined up the same way that we finished in race number 1. Does race 2 change at all in terms of your strategy, or do you just kind of run the same race over and hope that if you finish 2nd or 3rd, things go a little different the second time?
I'd say if you're any driver inside the top 10, you run that race exactly how you did race 1. There is no doubt about it. You want to stay out of trouble and buy your ticket to the end. That's the key. If you're a little bit further back, if you're about P30, P40, your race didn't go the way you wanted, you really dropped the pace. Deacon Greenfield then with the VR, he's giving a nice wave to everybody as he goes through. That's going to be a very important point of contention because he is able to look around everywhere. But if you're a little bit further back, Kyle, in terms of the race, you've got no more races after this. You've got 20 minutes to say, these are the points that I will gain in this race from this point onwards. You know, so to put it as blunt as possible, it's put up or shut up. And at this moment in time, I don't think any driver wants to put up with being in 30th or 40th position. No,
certainly not. We did learn a lot on the opening lap, though. 5 wide into turn 1 does not make for a great turn 2. There was about a half a dozen drivers that ended up backwards at that first corner. So how do you weigh the risk versus reward in a 20-minute race where you might start 30th and you can see 15th just a couple rows ahead?
It's game theory. It is as simple as, if you want to gain time early, go out there, be brazen, be aggressive. Sometimes drivers don't have a choice. They get put into a position they don't really want to be. But the longer that a race goes on, the more that an individual position is worth its weight. So you are weighing up the risk between how much do I want to go for this move and gain this place, compared to what is the overall end result of places I can gain by the time the checkered flag falls and this race is over. You weigh it up in your head. Each driver has a different weight in terms of how they want to set this up, but one thing is very clear. If you want to go out there and make some places in this race, you want to gain as much as you can early, because it gives you the luxury then of pick and choose later on.
Correction on the prizes, new year, so it resets for 2024. Prizes will pay out first to third, with the exception of instructors and full send sims personnel. So stand corrected there. As the year goes on, you can't get prize twice, but 2024 we've reset it all, so everybody is eligible, other than those that are assisting full send sims or instructing. So, of course, they got those great driving schools as well that you can do the week prior to an event and get yourself set up. And the great thing about this schedule is sans a couple weeks, this is one of them. All the races have been selected that coincide with the SCCA schedule, so you can run the track in the Full Send Sim series before you head to it in the real world. We did that for Sebring a couple weeks back. We've got Sebring on the calendar again, and there are some other great races on the schedule here this season that we will get to watch all year long. We've got Watkins Glen this week. We're at Sebring next, then Lime Rock Park up in Connecticut. Then we're back at Road America, the National Park of Speed, on February 20th. Then back to Homestead, Miami, the road course once more, before we head to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and Virginia International Raceway to complete our season. The next driver's school is going to be February 8th at Lime Rock, so make sure that you're there to catch all the instruction from Full Send Sim staff. As we begin our pace lap here, smoke in the background as tires are set alight, and the calm before the storm once again here, Jake.
Absolutely, and these drivers have been through this once already. They will take this pace lap. Some drivers are going to look around and go, well, that start didn't really work, and I want to try and gain places quickly, so I'll go out there and be aggressive. That's going to be the worry if you're 5, 6, 7 rows back, and you know that there is that funnel effect coming out of the 90 along what was the old pit straight back when the circuit was very first breaking ground. It used to be that the 90 was the first corner, but it went the other way. The track was an anti-clockwise circuit. So you get that sense that, okay, what do you need to do out of this? Just keep your eyes on a swivel and your eyes firmly put on the mirrors, because you never know who's going to try and push cold tires, cold brakes a little bit too hard, a little bit too early.
I learned a bit of recent trivia about the older configurations of Watkins Glen when we went there last year for Grid Life. Of course, the original track layout was in the town of Watkins Glen, a couple miles to the northeast, but there were a couple intermediate configurations on this property before the final circuit was paved and configured. One of them ran right up, see that break in the wall on the right there where the pavement comes through? That used to go straight across where the Mustang sampling bridge is there on the left. Up that road through what is now the center of the track, and you can see it on the very far left there, then took a right, which would have gone through what is now the garage area. That was part of one of the intermediate configurations that was only used for about a year or two before they paved the current track. It was still a street circuit back then. Obviously, the drivers didn't like that one very much, and now we got the first variation of what we have today in 1956. So, time to go racing for the second time tonight. Another 14-lap, 20-minute excursion here. Morgan Burkhardt, Camden Hibbett on the front row. The pace car peels off and heads for safety behind the concrete pit wall. And the green flag is going to fly back underway here at Watkins Glen, and immediately 3-4 wide in the mid-pack.
That's a huge push from the third row, and that's where the trouble's going to be. Eban's going to get swamped. Hibbett takes 1-2 taps through the opening section. It's well covered by Burkhardt, who's happy on the front, but the middle of the pack a little bit happier this time, as everybody does manage to find a way through. But the S is going to be a different story. It's 3 wide right through the middle, and watch out at the front. If something happens at the front, everybody will know.
Side by side for the lead. Burkhardt and Hibbett sorted out. Burkhardt grabs the lead. Hibbett settles to second place. I think everyone's gotten through the S's so far. There's one car scraping the wall. That's Ginsburg there in the background, but he'll keep it off of everyone else. We're still 3 wide, first time through the inner loop.
Yep, and look how narrow and defensive everyone's taking the chicane. Nobody wants to leave themselves open, and there goes Skittles.
There's cars everywhere here. We made it through turn 1, but the next pinch point, oh my goodness. 1 car upside down. 2 cars upside down.
Many cars upside down. It's a huge, I would say, litany of broken Miatas and broken dreams here tonight. You don't want your race to go around on the opening lap, and there was a prime example of it. On the brakes then, it's led by Morgan Burkhardt at this moment, Hibbett, Piatek, Eben, and then Reyes making a fantastic start to this race, gaining 3 off of this start, finding himself in 5th position. So the move's definitely being made early, and 1 lap score complete. Gianni Mauro has gained 12 spots off the start.
That's an amazing launch there for Gianni Mauro in the number 18. 22nd to 12th. I'll take that absolutely, as the leaders make their way up the hill for the second time. Let's go back and see that big wreck there in the inner loop, if we can pick up anything beyond the absolute pandemonium that it led to it, I think. You're not going to be able to see a whole lot here. Let's watch Court Schmidt here in this white car in the center. There was already cars spinning. He gets sent off to Narnia, and then behind him it was just a mess.
Well, he was as brave as a lion. He got absolutely duped by a witch, and he wished he could hide in a wardrobe. That is not what the doctor ordered. And then you just get that chain reaction, and you often see at Watkins Glen that you get an instant point and it delays, and you can get instants that span for hundreds and hundreds of meters around here. And Piatek in a bit of trouble. This is a big choke up for him. He's got a huge amount of work to do. I'd expect this is a penalty of the slowdown variety as he takes a tap. Yep, that's a slowdown. Lap 2 is sometimes even worse than lap 1.
Yeah, a little contact there with Reyes in the number 29, sent him for a ride. He was able to gather it back up, keep it straight, but had to run afoul of the track limits there, and is now down to 11th. That is going to be a hole to dig himself out of, especially as that group has started to shimmy away. Jordan Butler's the caboose of this 9-car train right now.
Well, that 9-car train has just found traffic, and this is where it gets very awkward up the hill, because everybody is now looking around going, right, we've got to get into line now. Everybody pass on the left. Do not find yourself a way to be a little bit balked up. Cam Eben right now and Morgan Burkhardt have an opportunity to get away. It depends on this traffic and whether they can clear it before they hit the braking zone. Everybody's trying to get through, but the traffic is so well behaved. They get right on the brakes on the inside, and everybody goes through it, maintains the train. They're at the front, but they still have to traverse the corner, and that's where the contact comes in, and Mauro gets turned around then with contact from Piatek.
And I think Tristan Cadet was also involved in that, unfortunately. He had such a good first race. He will tumble down the order in this one. They just got crossed up there, had to take not a great line because they were making their way by that traffic. Remember, there is a mandatory blue flag rule, but you still have to navigate the corner once you make that pass, and they just got their shoelaces crossed down there in the bus stop and went for a trip.
Well, it makes it impossible here for the lap traffic because they've had to slow down so much off of trying to keep these drivers all together. This group of 9, which is now fanning out behind there between Beans Forster and John Reyes and Joshua Soto, who's trying to make damage limitation for championship points, rushing down the inside, making that move happen at the 90. They had to slow so much down there, Kyle, at that section that they had no pace. The next group was on them like a pack of hounds, and they've got nowhere to go. And it's as simple as that. That's what makes it so difficult if you're lap traffic. How do you judge that? Speaking of judging it, why don't you, Cam Eben, make that push then to go to the race lead? The one issue he's got, it's 4v1. They're all on the inside. Look who's going to get a push.
Yeah, this is the freight train running express mode right now on the inside lane, and Cam Eben is on the outside with no place to go. You pointed out the traffic slowing down to get out of the way. You just can't hit the disappear button, is what Greg always says. There's no way to just magically go poof and you're gone. The car still exists on the racetrack no matter how good of a job you're doing getting out of the way. Big slide there from Forster as Jordan Rick-Segrini tries to muscle his way past.
Rick Segrini doing a good job keeping himself in play. Almost a malfunction at the junction there between those two, and it's always going to be a case of where do you look to try and find that run. And you can see the footwork, absolutely fantastic. Got to be so choice through every corner. This is as much of all of these cars, when you look around in terms of iRacing, when you got into iRacing back in the old days, 2015, 16, 17, this was the car that you sort of looked at and went, this is what you got to learn your chops on here, Kyle. And to learn heel toe in the first car that you've got out there was a huge boon, and that's why some of the sim racers who were brought up in that era, Sebastian Job, Frederick Rasmussen, I look at those sorts of drivers, are still incredible today because of that learning curve to start.
Absolutely. It's just in so many racing series, you got to start somewhere. And usually that somewhere is with, it could be as simple as something like autocross, but it's typically in a parking lot with an old-fashioned manual transmission. The flappy paddle stuff comes later. You got to learn the basics first, and the manual gearbox will teach you so much about weight transfer and car control and how to control a transmission before you're left with the buttons that do it all for you. But look at this paddle through the bus stop again. Burkhardt, Eben, Hibbett, Rice, Sputo in the 0-3. Now that he's up here in the mix, he could absolutely be a threat to the front runners here in the next 13 minutes.
I think every driver in this top group is a threat. That's how strong this top group is. Morgan Burkhardt has proven that he is top dog in today's racing, but you look behind, Cam Eben does not want to take that lying down. You're looking around that group, Camden Hibbett. Okay, yes, he's only a 4,700 iRacing driver. He drives like an 8,000 with the way that he's got that talent, and it will show in time. The more that he decides to do officials, he will be out there and he will be part of the 1% club in terms of drivers. Piatek down the field in 10th, won't be too pleased, but it's 8 to the front. Jordan Butler in no man's land is the chasing point to get through, and that's where him and the lap tracker Henry Drury sort of are coalescing right now, and it is those 8 at the front who are trying to get away. Everybody else behind, you're basically racing for the scraps.
Ayrton Grimm's going to hit pit lane here, and we've got a disqualification for the number 18 of Gianni Morrow as well for retaliation, so that will be the end of his night in that car. He's been off track for a couple of laps now. Wanted to point out Greg Ginsburg in the number 7 birthday boy again, up to 18th after starting 34th. All the while at the front, it is just chaos. Someone turned on the blender up here. We're making a smoothie.
Oh, we are, and it's all because Nicholas Rice-Puto is making some headway. He's gone from 4th to 2nd, and now behind it's getting a little bit dicey as Beans Forster has Jean Reyes taking the tap and is going to slide himself out wide and to the back of that group. He gets demoted, and on top of that to boot as well, he will not be best pleased because he takes a slow down along with that mix, and because of it, thank you very much, he loses all that ground and may have just lost the train.
Yeah, take one down, pass it around. 7 Miatas at Watkins Glen.
In the wall there, Burkhardt taps the final wall, and there's going to be no capitalization on that going forward. That's huge. Rice-Puto could have gone for the race lead. He decides, no, I want you to sit in your misery.
And he got hit from behind by Cam Eben in the braking zone into turn 1 because he was so patient. Cam ran up on him very quickly and I think just got caught off guard. There's a lot of damage on the rear of the 0-3 now, but as we've seen in the past, that rear bumper, you won't even bother caring about the condition of that. That is of no use to you tonight.
No, it's not, and you are very much in the push mode. You're not worrying on how it looks behind. You are looking at how quickly can you go, and they are now going to start trying to pick a lane. Cam Eben just about finding a gap, and to the inside, maybe tyres on the grass as well. This is brilliant stuff. Rice-Puto's going to overshoot this one, and that's going to chalk the entire field back up again. Which way are you going to go? He blocks 1, he blocks 2. Has he served the penalty there by doing it through? No, he's going to have to try and serve it here at the front and be clever, so he's got to try and serve that slowdown. He gets out of the way. Now he serves it, and Burkhardt will still somehow have this race lead.
It just, you shake the bag around and you dump everything out on the floor, and every single time Burkhardt's the first one to hit the ground. It's amazing how he can just find himself filtered out to the lead after mixing things up that aggressively through the inner loop. So he will keep the spot. All the work that Evan did is undone, and look who finds himself third, Mr. Beans Forster.
Well, I think the key there is that big checkup from Rice Puta going a little bit too aggressive has brought Reyes back onto that group. So you're back onto 8 again in this front. But look at that. You get that real shake-up. Beans Forster up now into 3rd position. Soto now finds himself in 5th. You are picking a lane and trying to find it every lap. It's proving to be a lottery. This may be a little bit less than some other laps because it has just strung out a little bit. And Cam Eben, who has been very staunch in that 2nd position, is just waiting for that right time to strike. And he knows how good Morgan Burkhardt is. He's just waiting and salivating, hoping that he can find one extra position. And he's not going to wait. He is going to say, I want my dinner right now.
And he will go to the lead. Burkhardt back to 2nd place. And he's going to have to fight for it all back again. Separate the Gazelle from the rest of the pack and go back at it. Little touch there. Little shimmy and shake through the carousel as these two fight for the lead.
Tell you what, Morgan Burkhardt is showing some skills of Valentino Rossi. Attack at the first port of call. You don't often get to see that from drivers. Drivers in iRacing are incredibly patient, especially at the highest level. They make risk-free moves. That is being aggressive from Morgan Burkhardt, and I love it. It just goes to show he is a racer through and through. He loves nothing more than leading the race, and when you've got two drivers who love nothing more than leading races, one of them is going to end up very upset by the end of the night.
You got to get your elbows out, too. These guys have been aggressive at the front. They have not been shy to lean on each other just a bit here and there. And if you're not willing to get your elbows out, you might just get poked. So down here into turn 1, it is now a 8-car race for first place from Evan back to Rice Puto. And Rice Puto's way out wide there. You're going to catch yourself a slowdown if you go too much wider than that. But I think some of the drivers discovered last season that these cars don't actually have enough acceleration to trigger the slowdown, so they might be able to run out there wide and not have any adverse effects.
Yeah, it's all about how much do you attack over that limit. That's where the key is. How much are you gaining compared to the lap? And if they're not gaining enough with the pace, then that is very, very telling. Through the trees and now looking for their brake markers at the outer loop once again. Everybody shuffles into line, and now all of a sudden Burkhardt's in a defensive stance right now. Beans Forster is trying to open up a navigational avenue to try and chart his way up into second place. But the more that these drivers sit and watch, the less time that they're going to have to make those moves. You've got to be so decisive, and you've got to know when's the right time to strike. And they are just on that cusp of finding everything that's needed. They are going to have to be a little bit braver, but we are reaching that crunch time once again. And a little bit of blinking there will not have helped in the middle of that group from about 4th from Camden Hibbett.
And the important thing there, midway through the lap, Forster was attacking Burkhardt, and they lost about 3 or 4 car lengths to Cam Eben. If they fight amongst themselves, they'll lose sight of the bigger picture. They have to stay working together here to beat Cam Eben, just as they were trying to beat Morgan Burkhardt. Look at this dive from Reyes in the background on Rick Segrini.
He's got to start making moves, making million-dollar moves, but he, at the moment, knows he's now going to need the help of the slipstream. A little bit of contact there. Rick Segrini is going to now start sliding about, and this group now there at the back is going to have to work. Now, all of a sudden, Hibbett tries to inhibit that 3rd place, and he will manage so on Beans Forster, who ends up being hung out there at the section of track that he really didn't want to be. Josh Soto giving the push now, trying to be comfortable. Burkhardt again on the outside. Will he challenge? No, he'll fall in line.
And Soto trying to cling to the corner panel of Beans Forster. That didn't work. Reyes is going to dive at the opportunity to snag 5th place away. Just like that. That was very savvy there by the 29.
Look, you've got to take the opportunity that presents itself in front, and that means covering off the exit, and he hasn't quite managed it there. So Reyes sees that Soto now has the opportunity to jump forward once again on that inside line into turn 6. Is he going to be able to fight it on the outside? The answer is no, as they go millions of miles wide through that section of track and track extend to oblivion. but Soto able to hold that position just by taking advantage of the finer margins in this race with 5 minutes left.
Big defense there from Reyes. 3 wide on the front straightaway back here for about 6th place. All the while, the front 3 trying to separate themselves out to make it just a 3-driver race. Lap 11 of approximately 14. So next time by should be 3 to go. Look at Rick Segrini chasing Rice-Budo into the runoff.
Yeah, they are looking to try and follow every single braking point. And this is where it gets dangerous at Watkins Glen. You follow the braking marker of the car in front. Quite often you see here, you end up following someone off the road, and especially with the overspeed that you'll get on these straights, you definitely cannot afford to brake at the same point as some of your rivals do, as they now scrap it out on the back, they scrap it out at the front, they scrap it out every which way. Evan then has himself what he wants, and he is being super aggressive through these corners. I don't think he can get much tighter through those corners. He gained 5 car lengths almost, it seemed there, just by saying, I am going to attack these curves and I'm going to rely on that influx of grip every time my car bounces back onto terra firma.
Well, he gained about 0.4 of a second on Burkhardt through the inner loop, but he lost 0.2 of it on the straightaway after. So that's how powerful the draft is here tonight. Even though it might not be quite as strong as the newer Miata, it still is significant. And that means that Cam Edmund can't run and he can't hide. Burkhardt's going to keep him honest. Burkhardt missed the apex there at turn 7, coming to 3 laps to go.
It's not quite Scary Terry, it's Scary Morgan who's there in 2nd position. He knows that he wants to be at the double here tonight, take them under lock and key and rush on home with a huge smile. Camden Hibbett would love to spoil the party in that 3rd position with the 3:13 that remains on the clock right now, with the group now 5 once more and 3 waiting in the wings behind them. This is where you're going to have to pick and choose the moment. Beans Forster's going to have to try and ride the side draft, but buffets the air, can't find the line. Soto maybe a little bit better on that outside track. Will try and go through. No help. Hibbett now will start to move. The line's going to have to work. Evans going to have to try and defend. He leaves half a door open there for Morgan Burkhardt to try and slip through. He just about manages to hold it all together. Evan is just playing the game perfectly on where do I give the draft and where do I place the car.
Look at Josh Soto jamming that Miata into the inside lane there of Beans Forster, but now he's on the wrong side of the road for turn 6. This is such a challenging pass to complete. If you don't get it done at 5, it's hard to hold it onto 6 until you get to the next right-hander at turn number 7. They're still door-to-door here for 4th place. Forster's going to try to muscle his way ahead. Soto's going to be wide. I don't think he'll keep the overlap. He will not. Eben and Burkhardt still nose to tail, and the best defense is a good offense. Let's see what Eben's got here these last 2 laps.
A fantastic defense is what he's got at the moment, but the question is, will it continue to be in that track? You've certainly got the sense that Evan has done everything right and he sits back there. Hibbett's there as well, but I look at Morgan Burkhardt's machinery and it has had that big smash up on the left-hand side, the right-hand side as you see it on screen through the early stages. Now that is a car stopped. That's Jean Reyes.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't know what exactly has happened to him, but he's in the middle of the road. No mind to that. We got 2 laps to go, and the leaders are doing battle here. Soto and Rice-Budo are door-to-door with Rick Segrini, and now it's a 4-car breakaway at the front.
Well, I believe it would be a technical issue there, maybe a freeze, which would be the only thing I could think of. Lines trying to be held and positions trying to be absolutely scrapped. Look at the straight lining effect there by Morgan Burkhardt. He's trying to really open up through that chicane, but the issue is that carousel jumps along so quickly, it's nigh on impossible to get to that inside, and it's still there. Reyes in a world of hurt.
Yeah, no full course yellows here. What happens when the leaders get there? They're going to be nose to tail. Reyes still on the left side of the road, right in the racing line on the entry to turn 7. What happens here as the leaders come through 6?
Well, they're going to be all compromised, and they'll know that much, so they'll just about get as close as they can, and that will actually give Cam Eben here the gap he wants. It's opened up Beans Forster here against Camden Hibbett here on the rush here for the battle for 3rd. White flag in the air. Eben, the biggest gap he's had tonight.
And still battling for 4th between Forster and Rice-Budo, arguing over which driver goes first, which driver has a shot at snagging a podium. Rick Segrini on the tailpipes of Forster. There's Soto in there in that mix as well, but Morgan maybe setting up a big run here with the assistance from Camden Hibbett to go by Evan. He's going to have a huge slipstream at the right time.
He is, but he'll bring Camden Hibbett with him. That's the only point of contention that he's got right up the top of the hill. Now it's going to be blocked. He tried to throw one block. Hibbett now trying to find a way through another block that's going through. Eben is trying to throw haymakers along this straight, trying to find this angle. And now side by side they'll scrap. Burkhardt has angled it to the inside, but here it's Eben who's still got enough, and they're going to tangle behind a little bit there. Rice Puto in the mix. There's a slowdown that's there behind for the driver who's in 5th place, but Evan somehow is holding station.
I don't know how they did that without crashing each other. They're 2 by 2 for 2nd and 3rd, but behind them it's chaos here. Banging doors for 4th place as well, but Evan trying to cling to a win here, but Burkhardt might give him a send down here at 6.
It's going to be a chance, and it is going to have to be that final corner, and I tell you what, it's Camden Hibbett who's got the best opportunity. He's going to throw it down the inside, and Eben on the outside. It's going to get dicey.
Checkered flag, here they come to the stripe, 2 and 3 wide. Eben, Burkhardt, Eben snags it at the Glen. 3 wide behind him for 3rd. Wow.
Cam Eben did everything on the border of legality to try and win that race. He was trying every single thing to hold everybody back. Somehow he's managed it, and that's why he is so tough to beat.
That was an unbelievable final lap. I think we are owed another look at that. All the way, let's go back before the bus stop. Look at this epic battle here through the inner loop.
What doesn't even tell the tale is the fact that he was weaving about, trying to find an angle left, trying to find an angle right. Big slide there by Hibbett, and then there's another little tap trying to force the angle open. Hibbett was throwing everything he could at it. So too Burkhardt, and Burkhardt, of course, was walking wounded with the damage that he had, was probably not even having a car that was totaling straight 100%. So this was a really tough battle, and that final corner, ooh, mama.
That was wild. I mean, just watch this. Camden just throws it down the inside. It's his only opportunity. It's that classic over-under that you see here. You see it at most sport. Couldn't keep the momentum rolling, though. Rice Puto almost stole this away, but couldn't get back to the throttle in time, and Evan was able to carry the speed. Burkhardt chased him all the way across the road, but couldn't get there. That was unbelievable.
It was Beans Forster in the end who ended up in 3rd. Rasputo actually took 4th. So Hibbett, who was looking at 1st, and for one moment there was 1st going through the final corner, Kyle, through no fault of his own, is 5th.
That's crazy. That is a wild race. That might have been the most entertaining race of the season. That last lap in particular has enough action to carry us through the rest of the season. But here's a look at your second race results. Cam Evans steals one away from Morgan Burkhardt in the late going here.
Simply incredible bit of driving there. The top 6 split by less than 0.3 of a second. You could put half a second through the top 7. That is just a legendary style of racing and performance that we've been able to see out there at the front. And the best bit is there were some great drives through the field. Trace Hans, 22nd to 8th in that race.
That's a great run. How about Richard Sawicki up into the 9th spot? And also Andrew Wozencroft as well. Great rebounds there and able to snag top 10s and all that. That is an excellent points day for those drivers. Olivier Piatek 12th in the number 62. That is not the day that he was looking for in race 2, especially because he was podium in that first race.
Yeah, and now you're starting to sense that a lot of these drivers ran into troubles. Just the 21 who are able to stay on the leading lap here in this one. Jim Friedhofer was one of the last drivers on the leading lap, with Tristan Cadet the only other one. And everybody else finding a huge amount of drama in their own races further back. It was so intense at the front. We didn't really have a chance to look away at it. Gianni Mauro was one of them. Caleb Patry having a horrible night.
That was a tough one for some of the drivers down here at the bottom of the order. Noah Jackson, Christian Rice Puto out early in this one as well. Michael Lauren in the 133. I don't think even took the green, at least in race number 2. Let's talk to our top 3 from both races. Olivier Piatek comes home in 12th in race 2, but was podium in race 1. Olivier never really got a shot to get in the scrap there in race 2. Take us through your night and that first race.
Yeah, no, race 1, tried to push away with Morgan, tried to be smart, and then last lap just got to lead when I shouldn't have. Should have stayed in second and gotten the draft in the backstretch. But yeah, it is what it is. Still a fun battle. Just wasn't aggressive enough in that first race.
How chaotic is it in the draft here? We saw it at the end of the first race. It seems like these cars and maybe the changes that were made to the setup in the off season have really made this car come to life, and the battles are bigger and stronger, and it seems like it's so challenging to pick your way through that mess on the last lap.
Yeah, it's all about positioning, and I just kind of made some rookie mistakes. You just have to be smart with your positioning. That's the one thing I didn't do.
All right, Olivier, 12th place in race 2, but got a good points night in race 1, and we'll see you next week when we head up to the next track. So appreciate you talking.
Yep. See ya.
All right, let's see who is up next. Let's talk with Beans Forster, who brought it home in 3rd in race number 2. Beans, holy cow, that was a wild race at the tail end there. Take me through your race 2 in particular, when you were up there scrapping and duking and diving on that last lap.
You know, it's pretty hard having to try and make the decision to either push or utilize the run. Because like when you're coming up the S's and you reach the top of the hill and you try to peek out, like your run just goes away, and then you get either left out to dry, or it's like a crapshoot every single time. It all depends on what the guys in front of you are doing and then what the guys in the back of you are doing. And it's like every lap I thought I made a right move, and then I had to get back in line and try and sneak my way back in there. So I don't even know how I did it, but I did.
Well, you'll take home a podium in race number 2. It was a 7th in race 1. How's your blood pressure doing? Because ours is significantly up following that last lap of race 2.
I did not think that I would be able to go too wide side by side with somebody twice in the outer loop. I thought I was gonna to meet the barrier at one point, but it was pretty clean. So I got some respect for all these drivers up here. They do such a phenomenal job at keeping the lines clean, keeping the contact to a minimum, and just having such a cutthroat, fun race.
Beans, thanks for your time. Thanks for putting on a show today, and congrats on a P3 in race 2.
Yeah, thanks guys. Take care.
Thank you. And Morgan Burkhardt wins race 1, comes up just shy in race number 2. Morgan, this was not easy tonight, and not that it has been easy in the past, but it felt like tonight the elbows were out quite a bit. Take us through those last laps in race 1 where you took a win, and then race 2 where you came up 92 thousandths short.
But definitely, this is a good race to come back to after being away for about a month. But race 1, I was leading pretty much the whole time, and I really didn't want to be there because I knew you could white line, but it's so up in the air. You throw a bunch of playing cards up and pick one, and that's usually who wins. So I was going to try and force some hands, and I saw Piatek went down to the inside in the last 2 corners coming into the white flag, and I was just like, all right, I'll let you have that. And then Camden went as well, and I was like in a good spot. I felt pretty comfortable there. Actually, I don't even remember what happened at the end of race 1. I just remember that I came out on top. But yeah, it was a lot of it, and the same with race 2 as well. It was just kind of planning so that you can put yourself in the best possible spot going up the hill into the bus stop. And that's same thing with race 2. I slowed up the penultimate lap, slowed up coming through the final 2 corners, gave myself about a half a second to Cam because I knew that like if I'm right on his bumper, I'm not really going to be able to do anything coming up the hill. So if I can give myself some time to really suck up to him and use all of the draft, then I'll be in a much better spot. And unfortunately, unfortunately for me, he did a really good job in defending and blocking off all of the possible passing areas. But really good job done to him, and it was a really fun race.
Yeah, great work tonight. 1st and 2nd, rights the ship in the points. Morgan, congratulations. Welcome back from Daytona as well, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Camden Hibbett, where did he end up in race number 1? Well, he ended up in 2nd. Let's talk to him now. Camden Hibbett, P2 in race 1, P5 in race 2. Looked like he could have had the win there coming to the checkers, but it didn't quite pan out. It got aggressive there on those last couple laps. Take us through your fight up front with Cam and Morgan.
Yeah, that was some wild racing. I don't really know what else to say. In race 2, I needed some help coming into, I don't know, turn 6 I think it is, the final left-hander on the white flag, and there was nothing Morgan could do. He had to push Cam, and that's just an unfortunate consequence of what position I had put myself in before. But that was some awesome racing. I didn't think the send into the final corner was gonna end up working out. But I figured it was worth a try, just making sure I didn't wreck Cam, obviously. Wanted to make sure that was the top of my list. Wanted to keep us three right up front. But that was some awesome racing. I can't wait to go back. I think we're at Sebring next week, back to Sebring. So looking forward to next Tuesday night.
Yeah, we're back at Sebring next week on the full course. Camden, thanks so much for talking. Congratulations, a strong night for you in the 132 car.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, it's Cam Eben, who steals race 2 from Morgan Burkhardt. Man, the elbows got out there, Cam. Congratulations on snagging one here at Watkins Glen. It was aggressive, it was fast, and it looked like a lot of fun. Take us through that last lap battle there.
Well, I learned in the first race that it's kind of difficult to get a huge run in these cars up the S's down to the bus stop. So I decided this time I was going to jump to the lead about the midpoint of the race and try to defend it from there. And all it takes is really holding the inside, and going side by side with someone into there is a bit scary, but I was able to make it work. And then behind me, they started racing a little bit hard, and it gave me enough of a gap to just barely edge it home for the win. So intense race for sure.
How do you plan ahead for what's happening behind you? Because it seemed like you've got, cannons firing from all angles on that last lap, and you're just making moves and cutting through the pack like something I've never seen before. Obviously, you've got tons of experience in these cars, but how is it that you are able to react so quickly to what's happening 3-4 rows behind?
I mean, it's a lot of looking in the mirror, just try to see what others are doing behind you. Obviously, don't react too much, but just see what's happening, see what's forming, and try to then place my car in the right spot. So, I don't know, just a lot of checking behind me. But like you said, I've done a lot of races on iRacing in general, so I think a lot of different experiences has helped me kind of prepare for what people might do. So, I think it all comes together to kind of help me in that scenario.
Jake, anything for Cam before we sign off?
Well, Cam, you are the sort of driver who sits on a really high pedestal in terms of iRacing. You're in an elite group of elites, and you are that sort of driver who, in this car, personifies the ability of I do not fear the person who has driven 1,000 cars. I fear the person who's driven one car 1,000 times. For you, getting your chops basically in this Miata, seeing this strength of field, having the ability to race against some of the best that the Americas have to offer. My question to you is, where is the ceiling for you? Where are you looking to go when it comes to your sim racing effort? And where do you expect to be challenging, not just when it comes to officials, but basically all over when it comes to the iRacing sphere?
Well, thanks to the Parallel Racing Group, I was able to compete with them in the GT3 class in the Daytona 24, and we won top split of our time slot. So I'm really looking to pursue GT3 going forward. Obviously, MX-5s have been great for me, but I'm obviously looking to expand into other things, and GT3 is where I find myself pretty suited. So I guess to the higher levels of that are my next pursuits, and hopefully just sharpening my craft in GT3 and other cars besides the MX-5. So yeah, that's where it's looking for me.
Cam, thanks so much. And, man, give a Miata driver with all the precision, and then you add him a couple hundred horsepower and some downforce. That is a dangerous combination. Cam, thanks for talking, and good luck to you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Oh, man. That's going to be fun to watch as he masters GT3 cars to the level that he's mastered Miatas. Jake Sperry, what a night of racing here in this Full Send Sim Spec Miata series. This was a fun one. Final thoughts.
This is the resting place of one legendary driver who never got the chance to challenge at the Formula level, and that being Francois Sever. You talk about this circuit and what it means for the lower engined category of car. It means you have to be choice. It means it's pick and choose, and it feels plate track. This is an important victory in Morgan Burkhardt's racing, but Cam Eben's shown everybody that there's a reason why he is so strong, why he is so talented, and why he is now looking to try and apply his skills in different places, because you can argue he has mastered this car top to bottom, left to right, up, down, slantways, in every way, including Willy Wonka's Great Glass Elevator. It's a fantastic series, and when you put Sebring on the horizon next week, it pretty much says one thing to me and one thing only. It will be more of the same, just you're adding a little bit extra length into those races, and the choices become more and more finite as the season goes on.
See, from one legendary racetrack to another at Sebring International Raceway next week. That's what's on the horizon here for the Full Send Sims Racing Series and the Spec Miata Championship. Practice makes podium. Big thanks again to Full Send Sims, Final Turn Motorsports, 3P Logistics, and Wine Country Motorsports for supporting this series. Thanks to all, and we'll see you next week in Central Florida at Sebring International Raceway, and hopefully Greg Creamer can rest up and be back with us next week. Thinking of you, bud. And we'll see you next time from Sebring in the Full Send Sim Spec Miata Championship. Thanks so much.